So, why should you play Cassante support? Noticeably, it's a really weird preposition and position for Cassante. It's not like he ever touched the role before, and we never really seen a tank like him before in the role, but I believe he's extremely undervalued for the role and could do things no other supports can do. Okay, so as a start to this, I kind of want to showcase like what makes him effective as a tank, or at least what tank supports usually are meant to be in bot lane. Um, so to understand this we kind of have to understand how supports in the bot lane function. And supports in bot lane are consistent of three archetypes. We have the enchanters, the pokers, and then the tank engagers. Against pokers, tanks usually focus on the job of protecting the AD carry or look for active kills to give a little advantage to the AD carries and a lot more safety towards them, reaching their end goal of getting 3 items. As AD carries slowly but surely, depending on the carry, get stronger and stronger as the game goes on. And against pokers, it's really hard because they get, poked and lose a lot of their HP and have to sacrifice a lot of waves to keep survivability, and it really sucks. So tanks in that scenario need to all end before they lose too much HP. Otherwise, they'll just die against the poker over time because they don't have natural ways of sustaining themselves. So against enchanters, the idea is basically the same. You want to kill the enemies before they scale and become a lot more valuable than you are, because it's one of those things that makes tanks kind of unviable a lot of the times, and depending on the meta, is that it reaches a point where, enchanters are a lot more valuable to the team than the tank support. Although it can do picks, which is really important in some situations, and peel relatively well, if you want to peel and keep your team alive, enchanters are just a lot more valuable, and engaging is the thing that can be done with other rules as well. So it is really really important for like tank supports focused on killing to fucking kill. And to that extent, we need to talk about what makes those tank supports genuinely shine. So when you're playing a tank support, there's three things you need to actively call yourself a tank support. You need high CC, some relative way of protecting your allies, and above everything else that truly makes a tank support, that's like being tanky, is high base damage. And this last one is really important because the reason we specify high base damage is because a lot of the times you can build AD and you can build AP as to increase your damage for any given champion. But for tanks, you really don't want to build any sort of damage. You only build relative tankiness so you can do your engages and keep yourself alive to have more value in other factions of any fight. And so the only real damage they can provide is the one already implanted in their kit. So think of Rel's E, Leona's passive, and just their numbers in general when you like fight with them. Like their basic abilities deal a lot more damage than usual abilities do. Recently, Nautilus got a really big buff in his base damage exclusively for this same reason. They wanted him to have a lot more kill pressure because he was falling a lot behind because he just didn't have enough in the current meta. With that in mind, I think Cassante got insane amounts of help recently to get this perfectly going for him. In the sense that, like, in patch 14.9, he received a very specific set of changes that kind of worked to tone him down a bit at the time. He was incredibly overpowered in top lane, like insane. And after a lot of changes, they kind of realized that like they don't really want to kill the champion outright, but at the same time they didn't want to like make him too easy for other people to play it because it was really skewed towards like high-end uh levels of play. And so they wanted to kind of fix him in a way that would like make it easier for new players but also not make him too strong and competitive. And their basic idea was this making him a lot more centric in what he wants to do. So now you can't move your W, and now you can't gain as much power when you ultimate, and the way Jackshire works doesn't function. And to compensate for that, they changed a couple of things. Mainly is base damage. So with everything that we talked about before of what makes a tank support work, if we look at Cassante, he has everything. So he has high base damage because his kit got changed to have that high base damage. He has a shield. He has CC, insane amounts of CC, I might add. And he has displacement, and he has dueling power. Like, it technically feels like a whole package of what you need a support to be. And the best part of it all is by building him tank, you're actually also building damage, which makes his supporting a lot better than most other supports, because other supports are very conditioned on the damage they already have. No matter how much you build, you won't get more damage. With Cassante, the more tanky you get, the more damage you also do, and the more help you can provide to your team. If you want to see just how strong Cassante can be in terms of like protecting your AD carries with all the tools that he has, look no further than all of this in the background. Like, this is insane. Look at the amount of peel. No one touches my AD carries. Like, what the fuck are they meant to do? Sometimes it does go wrong, especially against long range comps, but this is fucking fantastic. Like, look at this. I'd say this is probably one of the best peelers in the game. Like, completely on par with Rakan and Braum. I think they have more considerable ways of playing the game, but like, if I had to put Cassante as a tank support and what kind of tank support he is, it would be the Rakan and Braum type. He is basically an absolute walking wall, but he is definitely not a champion you can just pick up in your next ranked game and win with it. Like, the issue that Cassante has is like he requires a lot of intense hours to actually like get decently good at him. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm not decently good at him. I've dabbled, like he helped me get to diamond, and I do some mechanics with him, but like effectively, I am by no means like particularly good with him. The other really weird thing is like you can't just jump with him without any experience because you're gonna also build him wrong. And the reason I'm saying that you're gonna build him wrong is that for a context, his best build is to do 2 Ages of the Legion as a rush. I'm actually talking like this component. Like, this is the best thing you can rush for your items. If you don't watch this video, you won't know this shit, and it's really stupid, but that's the best thing you can go for him. So, basically, as Cassante is a champion that like gets stronger and stronger as you build tankiness on him, the effective thing you want to buy on him is armor and MR. So for a long time, I had this really difficult situation of like, I saw a lot of the items I could build, and I was really confused, or I was not confused, but they all felt very underwhelming. Like a locket of the Iron Solari, technically, really good item. But for 2,200 gold, I get 50 armor and magic resist. It combined, like it's 25 each, but I get 50, and I need like 125 for my Q to be maxed out, and the more resists I have, the better. Like, the HP is good, but Cassandra effectively does deal no damage with his HP, so the stat's nice, but effectively doesn't really do anything. So I had to kind of change my approach to it. I tried going for other items like things like Thornmail, Frozen Heart, Kinetic Rukern, but although Thornmail wasn't too bad, most of the other items were really expensive. Like, everyone's doing Locket and I have to do a Thornmail to kind of even compete, and then I don't have enough magic resist. It kind of feels awkward if I'm not ahead because I'll just fall so far behind in terms of everything that I needed to find a different set of like way of getting magic resist and armor. And my solution was the Ages of the Legion. Because for 1,100 gold, I get armor, MR, and cooldown reduction, which is all 3 stats because something desperately wants. The one issue with this was I have no HP. But to compensate for it, I kind of thought it like this. 2 Ages of the Legion is the same value as an Iron Solari, and I get double the resistances and the same amount of CDR. So the only trade-off here is not having that health. Incidentally, Cassante is a champion that kind of can live without that early health because of the way his kit works, where he has a shield, which can be considered health, because it technically is health. And he has a W that mitigates damage, which you can also convert into health. So effectively, I basically don't have health, but I kind of do have health. And since I don't really need health as a stat to have my things be strong enough to do what they are meant to do, I don't worry too much about it. But it is really important to still have some level of tankiness towards that, spectrum of things. So in that sense, my solution to it was, okay, I'll do AAGs of the Legion into Locket, starting with the HP, because it basically gives me the stats I need and starts powering me into the item I really want. And then from there, I can do whatever the fuck I want. If I need anti-healing, I'll go Tormail. If I need more resistances, I can do Jack Show. If I need protection, I'll go what's it called, Knight's Vow. You basically kind of can maneuver after you already have the two ages of the Legion, because the two ages of the Legion are the most important part, because it's what defines what K'Sante can really do. And increases his mid game power once you get those two items is insane. You can contest anything and you probably win most 1v1s you do. Like it is really that powerful. To know is that you have two massive power spikes. One is level 6, where you just win any 1v1 or even 2v1 if you're like good enough. And the other one is two Ages of the Legion. Two Ages of the Legion is a lot more power than like anyone is gonna expect you're gonna have, and you beat anyone with it. Anyone. And you need to be prepared to like utilize that power spike in specific to take things on a map, including grubs and dragons, just to maximize your potential in the things you're doing. Now, despite me saying that this K'Sante support is incredible and it can be a Rakan and a Braum at the same time and it's like wonderful, it does have one gigantic weakness. He is very limited by his own range, and he cannot be a very good engager. He's not an effective engager. Like, he's a Rakan, but he's not as good at engaging as he is. To a degree, at the highest levels, I imagine K'Sante is like the Rakan in the sense that it's like he should be a second engager, not a first one. And if you don't want to engage with him, you should work with him as a pure peeler. Now, the reason for this is that he is very limited in this approach to a fight. So, by starting this off, your biggest and most powerful tool to displace people is your W. But W has a fundamental weakness. Although very, very powerful and will definitely chunk like 20% of anyone's HP, especially if you start getting the Ages of the Legions going, it's one direction. Basically, if you click that button to wherever your mouse is pointing, you will dash there. It doesn't matter if you, misclicked it and you're going in their turret, you're gonna go there. And it sucks because effectively before you could change your direction according to the situation, so it made more sense to like be able to disengage if something went wrong. Now, if you clicked it, you're fucked. You're so incredibly fucked. If you missed it, it's terrible. And it's one of the highest cooldowns you have and one of the highest damage and utility you have as well. So you do not want to miss this. So in essence, we need to find a way to guarantee your W. So it's very easy to maneuver and to always hit it. And in that sense, Q comes up. And so Q has a pretty significant slow. And if you land your Q on anything, you practically guarantee W as long as you point it towards like their hitbox. Like you can fully charge your W and hit it on any target if you land a Q on them, which is pretty good. Bar, some movement the enemy may have, like if Ezreal jumps away or Caitlyn E's, like you can't really counter that. But if it's a normal champion and you Q it, you can easily W it. Fair enough, very simple. Now the issue with it is that Q is like tiny. It's a Q from Yasuo basically. So like unless anyone in bot lane is melee range of you, which they're not gonna be, you're not going to land your Q, and that's really complicated to maneuver, right? Because you can't just walk up to enemies and just like QW, like everyone's going to run away and kite you forever. So you need to find another approach to this, and that's where E comes in. So if you use E on your allies, it will shield them, but you can also use them on your ally minions. The dash isn't gigantic, but it is enough to catch a lot of people off guard and set off the combo of Eing a minion, Qing the enemy, Wing for full amount, and you just keep the CC lock going as long as you want to. Like, they'll never really escape unless they have a dash. But the issue on this is you will use your, dash and shield for the effectiveness of a Q that if you miss, which is very likely that you do, will put you in a scenario where you can't back off and you're going to take a shit ton of damage for it. It's not great. The effective reality of this is that it is not that great in this condition where you need to like engage on people that are too far away. Like if you're playing against a really ranged matchup or against a matchup that has a lot of movement, like it sucks. Like playing against Vel'Koz, Xerath, Zyra, Caitlyn, Ezreal, Tristana. Oh, the list goes on and on. It's impossible. If you're trying to fight things that run away from you, you're not going to be able to fight at all. It is really complicated and really time consuming, and you're most likely just going to kill yourself from doing it. So it's one of those things that you have to be very careful with it. There are ways to work around it. I have won some matchups against Vel'Koz, Xerath, and Caitlyn, especially because people don't expect what Cassante does, and that is nice. But if enough people play Cassante and enough people get to know what Cassante does, that won't work anymore. So you have to be really careful of like how you approach and you practice this transition and this combo to be extremely effective. Because if you land it on anyone, and I mean anyone, he's dead. The person is dead, and you won't even lose like half HP. Like they're just gonna be dead. It's insane. But if you don't reach, you're gonna lose 70% of your HP, and it's gonna suck. So with that in mind, we need to talk about the runes and the reason I decided to go for these, because it's I think really important to like help Cassante in the weakest stages of his gameplay. And for that situation, the runes I prefer using is Aftershock, Demolish, Conditioning, and Overgrowth. Now, though this is, if you really want to win lane, this by far is gonna fuck shit up. You're gonna get so ahead, you're gonna get so many items, but this isn't consistent. You need to do this against enemies that are, relatively melee range or that you can effectively kill very easily. So if you're playing against any sort of engager, this is good. If you're playing against an AD carry that can't move like Jinx, this is fantastic. It falls within that, set of things that you can maneuver. Now, if you're playing against something that is a bit more difficult for you to actively play against, you need to change your approach to either keep Aftershock if you really like it, because the games are dependable. If they have too many melee champions, it's really nice to have Aftershock, but otherwise I'd really suggest going Guardian, Font of Life, Second Wind, and Revitalize to sustain your health as hard as possible, because you're basically gonna get just poked out consistently. Even if you do get close enough to do a combo, maybe they'll run away and you need to sustain yourself back to try another time. And this provides you with the best amount of sustain for, that situation. It doesn't mean that you can't play aggressive with this. You definitely can, but it's more noticed. You'll do a little bit less damage. You'll have a little bit less gold from not having Demolish, but it is with the condition that you have a lot more opportunities to try and engage fights against higher range targets and try to catch them off guard. You'll still kill them in one go, but it's a lot more controlled and you'll have a lot more efficiency in case something does go wrong. And yeah, for secondary, I'll always use the same. I'll use a mixture of cookies and approach velocity, because it basically gives me the sustainability that I want, and I've discussed before that is really good. It also gives me a lot of movement speed when engaging, so if I hit my Q, I have a much better chance of finishing my combo appropriately. Now, let's talk about another very weird thing you have to do. Order ability. This one is really complicated because for a long time I was under the impression that maxing W was the best. Not only does it reduce your cooldown on one of your most important abilities, it also made it that you dealt a shit ton of damage when you landed. Um, but I realized that it was like extremely inconsistent. Despite the cooldown reduction, I noticed that it wasn't the best because the consistency at which you land that is really difficult. The damage is great, and the displacement and cooldown of it is okay, but you never really have it like twice in a fight, and if you ult, you lose the utility of it, and you only have damage, and you're gonna die right after using it, so it felt kind of weird. I felt I lacked quite a lot of impact in the early game. For a while, I also tried maxing E, trying to see if protecting my AD carry would be a bit more valuable, but I also realized that the shield is very nice, but whatever I do afterwards isn't as great. It has a lot of flaws and weaknesses to it, so I started to try maxing Q, and Q was actually pretty good. It did a lot more damage on my rotation, and since I spam Q so often and the base damage is so high, I basically in like 9 seconds can deal upwards to like 600 damage or more. So it was really effective with what it had to do. But I realized that like if I fully max Q, I had the issue where my other abilities would be online way too late. And so I ended up deciding on going on a 3-point system where I put 3 points in Q to maximize its damage and utility in the early game. And then I go into maxing E to provide, sustainability and survivability to my carry. If I feel like he doesn't need that survivability and he's doing pretty well, I'll put points in W and maximize my damage output and my ability to disrupt enemies at later stages of the game. Now, this isn't an end-all be-all. I think this is one of the aspects, along with the build, that is like more susceptible to changes over time, especially as people get used to it and like kind of realize what is actually the most effective thing you can do with him. So I'll leave this up kind of like a baseline of what you guys should do, and then once we have enough experimentation on this, we can discuss if how good it really is and like where we should actually max out these abilities, and maybe someone will even figure out what the best kind of build is as well. Maybe Ages of the Legion Rush isn't as good as I think. This is kind of a big reason of like why I want to do these videos. Is like we have a very nice idea, how can we make it even better? And I think only the true real way we can make it even better if other people also try it out and experiment and see what they can do with it. Now that I've gotten everything out of how to play him and how to maneuver him, I want to say a few words of like, this is the greatest fun I've ever had at support. Like, this is awesome. I've played years of Thresh exclusively because I love them so much, and I think I kind of like Cassante more than Thresh. That's saying a lot. I have like 1,000,000 points on him. Um, it's just, it feels awesome. I feel like I have so much damage, so much utility. I have so much capability and outplay potential. It's like I'm playing like Yon or Yasuo bot lane, but it actually has function and makes sense. It's so incredible. I can't express just how many plays and things that I can do with this champion. How many situations that happen that I'm like ecstatic and euphoric. It is like it feels good to play him. It's really awesome. I feel like even despite just the fun I have, I feel like he truly has a very considerable niche on what exactly he can do. He is incredibly powerful at dealing exactly with specific kinds of supports. He is by far, and I mean this truly, the best support to tell any kind of engaged support to go fuck off. If the enemy's playing Rakan, Braum, Nautilus, Rel, Leona, Thresh as well, Pike. Cassante is incredible to not only completely deny them of any play because he can like shield the AD carry and click W to make become unstoppable. He can also just immediately turn the fight on them and win it like so one-sidedly. There's not even close possibilities. We've had games against Poppies, which technically should be an effective counter to Cassante, and we've won them. We should not have won that, but Cassandra just deals so much and is so well-rounded for the bot lane in those circumstances that he still wins. It's so incredibly fun to play Cassandra like this. For me, and that's part of the issue with Cassandra. A lot of the AD carries that I've played with did really tell me about the frustrating part of it, between the kills I end up having because I'm so invested and so focused on it, and between situations that my AD carries just don't understand what exactly I can do. It was clearly very frustrating for them. I have had quite a bit of games where AD carries would just dip or not trust me or a myriad of other million types of things. And it doesn't really fix its weaknesses. Cassante, despite everything, like we talked before, ranged matchups are practically impossible for him. You can force it quite a bit, but it's not great. And you always have to be very aware of what the draft is looking like for you to effectively take as much of Cassante as possible into the game. We have to remember that Cassante is effectively a niche pick. The best niche pick you can have in a very specific situation, but still a niche pick, and we need to consider him as such. So, if you are trying, and you will try Cassante support, you have everything for you to be able to try it and win a shit ton of LP. But you need to look at what's being drafted. If they have a high range of supports or AD carries with ability to flee, you're not going to be able to play Cassante. You're going to suffer. Maybe in the mid game, if the enemy is very melee, you can punish that, but more often than not, you're going to suffer quite a bit because of the just natural dynamic of the bot lane being too far ranged. Cassante can't deal with this. And that's kind of how I want to do end of the video on. Like, I don't really know where to place Cassante. I don't think he's as good as Milio was. I think Milio is definitely up to A to S tier. But I don't think Cassante is the same. I think Cassante is very specific. He is meant for one specific job in the bot lane, but the job that he does better than any other champion. Like, even things that should usually counter those kinds of champions, he does it better. So, you have to be really aware of that. And I hope you have that understanding, and with all of this explanation, you can put it into effect into your gameplay, and with the footage in the background, you can also take some ideas of how you want to effectively use him and play with him. I hope you really enjoyed the video. I can't wait to hear everything that you guys have been doing and how well Cassante or Milio have been doing. And I really hope you guys share with me everything that's been going on. Thank you a ton for watching, and bye-bye!